Hello everyone, this is Srijata Bhatnagar, your host for Setback Leadership Podcast Season 1. In this season, we are going to focus on glass ceilings and how leaders can break glass ceilings for growth and success beyond imagination. In this episode, we spoke to Ms. Rekha Narendra, who happens to be a HR capital management professional with 25 years of experience in many industries. She has worked as a HR as well as transformational professional in different organizations like manufacturing, like ITES, like automobile and many more. Rekha's passion actually is in building amazing work culture within organizations. In her many companies that she has worked in the past, she has always built a transformative work culture around the organization. And she was recently featured in Forbes for the same reason. She actually created and built an amazing work culture, a transformative work culture in the new normal during this pandemic. While I was speaking to Rekha, we spoke about many things. Among this, some of the very important things were how organizations can actually help their leaders to break those imaginary glass ceilings. What are those things, those steps that the organizations can take? On the contrary, we also spoke to her and we asked her what are the things that leaders themselves can do to help them come out of their glass ceilings. How they can make it easy for them to break those glass ceilings with very simple 2-3 actions. You want to know more about that? Then you have to listen to the entire chat. Come, let's listen to the entire chat. Hi Rekha and welcome to the Setback Leadership Podcast, the Season 1. This particular season is about glass ceilings and how leaders can break those glass ceilings. So welcome to the show, Rekha. I'm so excited to have you.
Hey, thank you so much, Srijata, for inviting me, and lovely to be here. I'm so excited to be able to share my views on this.
Yes, so I know you are a firebrand of a leader. You have been there, done that for so many years now. And I thought you would be the right person to talk about this topic. So let me straight get into the point and ask you, what does glass ceiling mean to you?
I think, Srijata, it is this invisible, barrier that kind of exists in certain organizations, I would say. I wouldn't say all organizations, which prevents a woman leader from growing beyond a point. And this invisible barrier is created due to age-old perceptions or beliefs or unconscious biases which have been created in the system and in the structure, which kind of say that okay, a woman cannot grow beyond this level. She's already reached a certain level, and for positions beyond that, for leadership positions beyond that, maybe her skill sets do not match, or she's not the right fit, and that is where she needs to stay. So, this is my understanding of the glass ceiling. But again, like I said, I've not seen this in all organizations. I have heard of it, from some friends and colleagues. Personally, I've been very fortunate. I've never had to face a glass ceiling in my entire career till now.
Wow, that's like an amazing statement that you gave. So other leaders who are watching it right now, you know who should be your role model when you want to let go of glass ceiling, because she is the live example of it, that not all women leaders face the glass ceiling. Tell me your journey. You have been there in the industry for almost 23, 24 years now, I believe, right?
25, Srijata. Incidentally, I
Yes.
just completed 25.
25. Oh my goodness. I would like to probe in there that you have never come across a glass ceiling, which means it is, in your career spanning over 25 years, you have had a free ride, which is an amazing thing. I want to ask you, how did you manage it? How did it all start? And how did you manage without, going into this rut of a glass ceiling? Tell us a little bit more. I'm sure other leaders also would want to know about it.
So, you've got me at a very interesting time, Srijata, because like I mentioned, just completed 25 years in HR. It's been a fabulous journey. And the past few days, I've actually been thinking back about where it all started. My very first campus job was with Murgappa Group. And Murgappa is a hardcore, manufacturing, organization, manufacturing group. And when I started off, I started off in the corporate office, a typical HR role, handling recruitment and training and, policies and all of that. But even in those days, there was this aspiration. I remember amongst the guys in my class, oh, it's exciting to work in manufacturing, handle employee relations and unions. And, it was this big macho thing that we will handle the unions, fight with the unions, and all of that. Now, somewhere, even I started having the thought in my mind that I would also want to work in the factory. Hearing all these conversations, because the belief was that a true HR, experience can be gained only by handling situations, real life situations in the factory. Now very soon, by sheer dint of my hard work and my attitude, I got pulled into an opportunity in the factory. Now, even in the factory, it was the standard HR role that I was doing initially, which was recruitment and training and all of that. But it so happened that the person handling employee relations, he retired. And to my surprise, and that's the reason why I said that I've never experienced this kind of perception or anything that a woman can't do this or a woman can't do that. Even before I could think of it, my manager actually called me and had this conversation with me saying that, hey, X is getting retired. He's been handling employee relations and union, relations and negotiations and all of that. Do you want to take on that role? And I was actually shocked, thinking that, hey, here I am, I'm just a 23-year-old girl, working in a factory, 1,500 workmen, average age is about, 40, 45. In those days, even my Tamil wasn't so strong. I really could not speak Tamil so fluently. And here is my manager saying that he seems to have the confidence in me that I can handle this role. And I said, why not? Yes, let me, take it on. But I will be very frank with you. Every day, I was scared. Every day, I was like, okay, what situation will happen today? Because it was a factory where the relationship between the union and the management wasn't so great, and there were tiffs happening all the time. Workmen suddenly would get agitated. I've actually had the experience of going through some sit down strikes. I've had a situation where one day about 40 workmen barged into my cabin, threw stuff on my table. They were very unhappy with something. They refused to leave my cabin, and I had to really talk to them, patch things up, and convince them that hey, I will look into this. So very interesting, situations that I faced very early on in my career. But what I am today and the kind of growth that I've seen, I really owe it to those initial experiences.
Must have been a scary experience at that time, but I mean, when you look back right now, you must be feeling if that challenge hadn't happened to you at that time, you would probably be somewhere else, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, cool,
I
cool. That's
myself
amazing.
did not know that I had it in me, to handle situations like that. Because if you look at my background, Srijata, very, very sheltered, background, very, very protected. I was this girl that, studied in a girls' school. Everywhere I would go, my mom would promptly send my brother as an escort, to ensure that there was no issues or anything. So very, very protected and sheltered background. So suddenly, in my work stint, to start facing such situations, to be bold, to handle confidently. Because see, in front of them, you cannot afford to look scared. You cannot afford to, get bogged down by the pressure that they're putting on you. So you have to be able to stand up and state your views and state it very confidently. I think all those so early in my career really helped me a lot.
I mean, I can imagine that. So, that brings me to another question here, Rekha. Is okay, so you, in your last 25 years of experience, you have actually worked with so many more leaders, right? And you have nurtured, built more leaders. Have, in your experience in these years, have you seen any other leader going through such kind of a glass ceiling or struggling with their growth or success due to certain age old these rotten beliefs or these the ideas that women can't go beyond a certain point? Have you seen somebody else facing something like this?
I have, Srijata. So, in all the organizations that I've worked with, we've had very strong women-centric programs. That's one great thing, and I would strongly advocate it. I think it's really important to have, such structured programs where you're identifying high potential women talent in the organization and who can be groomed into future leadership roles. Sometimes people turn around and say, oh, why do you have such programs only for women? But let's face it, there are age old biases that we are dealing with. And even today, women are not on the same footing as men. Whether you take careers, whether you take, there are many other areas. I mean, even if you look at your rural, villages, even today, men and women are not paid on par. So we are dealing with, age old such perceptions and beliefs, and it's important that you have such programs. Now, being one of, being a high pot woman leader, I've always been a part of these programs, either as a mentee or as a mentor. And yes, I have come across, some women, who've struggled, and sometimes it's, not that much due to the technical ability that they possess or don't possess. It's more in terms of their leadership, capability or the perception, I would say, that, oh, I don't think she's mature enough to handle this role. Or, it's too huge, it's too complex and requires a lot of quick decision making or things like that. And, is she there? Is she ready? Can she handle it? I think those kind of perceptions I have seen. And, and sometimes also this whole emotional maturity being, will she be objective enough? Can she handle, this? Can she be assertive? Can she be aggressive? Can she push back? These kind of things usually come into play. So that's something that I have definitely seen, some women who are trying to work around those situations based on things that they've been told.
Right. And I would like to know at this point in time, what has been when you were a mentor, mentoring such women, what has been your approach towards it? What are those things that would have helped them to get out of this problem of facing the glass ceiling, right? Or how did those leaders actually come out of the challenge? I would like your opinion, your views on that.
Sure. Shisha, the one thing that has worked for me, in my career, and which is the same thing I tell anyone, that any of the women leaders that I have mentored or I have worked with is, first of all, your self belief has to be very strong. And I faced this myself, which is why I say the same thing to the women that I coach or mentor, because there have been times, not off late for sure, but very early in my career where I have not had the confidence myself. Like I said, I gave you the other example, where my manager had confidence in me. And it's not just that one example. There have been other examples where my managers have seen something in me. They've seen potential, they've seen qualities in me, which somehow I have not observed that myself, or I've been too critical, and it happens to all of us, right? And sometimes I feel women more so, we tend to be too self-critical, and that kind of suppresses our self belief or self confidence. I think the biggest barrier is in our mind. And if we can overcome that barrier, the minute you start feeling that confidence, you start radiating that self belief, and that power, that inner power, people around you can see that. It will be so visible to all of them that there's no question of anyone turning around and saying that hey, I don't think you can do this, or you can't do this. So one thing that I always tell people, that first and foremost, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you can do it, because you can't expect others around you to believe that you can do it if you yourself don't, right? So that's very important. Second is, take the feedback objectively, analyze it. It's not that you have to believe everything that's been told to you, but at the same time, you should not dismiss everything also. Is there truth in it? Objectively look at yourself, look at, observe yourself over a period of time. How do you handle situations? How do you handle crisis situations? How do you handle, uncomfortable situations? How do you push yourself? How do you adapt to situations? How do you deal with people? So observe yourselves, observe, apply the lens of the feedback that you have been given, and then see, is there something that you need to change? And then work on it consciously, because behaviors take ages to change, and you have to apply your mind consciously to be able to change a patterned, way of approaching a situation, or a patterned way of thinking about a situation. So apply that, take that feedback, work on it, and then automatically you will be able to overcome that.
You brought out a very interesting point about self belief, and you're right in that sense that unless somebody, it is not only with women alone, it is also with men. I see so many men out there who do not believe in their own abilities. I'm talking about leaders here, right? And unless that belief is there, it becomes very difficult. We sometimes become really self-critical of ourselves. So I always say this, right? If you don't believe in yourself, who else will? If you don't trust yourself, who else will, right? So I think that's a very, very important point. And secondly, yes, it's very, very important to work on your natural responses, I would call it, right? How you naturally solve a problem, or how do you naturally deal with a certain situation, and treat that as your strength and work on it, right? Do not focus on your, I would say, your weaknesses, but focus on your strengths, and then work on those and bring those out as your natural talent for growth. Amazing, amazing. So, Rekha, this brings me to the another question. You are been working with, great organizations. You have built great cultures. You have transformed teams in many organizations. What do you think organizations, this point in time, the current situation, especially because it has, I would say, change the way we look at work. We look at intimacy. We look at work-life integration. We were talking about earlier work-life balance. Now we talk about work-life integration. And just because now, for example, you have logged in from home, I've logged in from my office, and people are getting to see a part of your home as well, right? So in this situation, what do you think organizations should do to make sure that glass ceilings don't hinder growth for any leader? What are your thoughts on that?
So, first of all, let me talk about something that, is really amazing that my current organization is doing. We had the entire leadership team, go through a very interesting workshop, Srijata. And I've never seen this, anywhere else in any of the previous organizations that I've worked with. This was a 3D simulation workshop, and like a virtual, it's almost like playing those video games, the simulation video games and all of that. And where we all are kind of sitting in a meeting, and there are some women and there are men, and there is a very interesting conversation happening. And you're actually, looking at the meeting through the lens of, the people sitting in that room. And while the conversation is happening, there are some very interesting perceptions, unconscious beliefs, and unconscious biases which come up. And as a, and the reason why this format is so interesting is you have the male leaders sitting through the observing through the lens of a female leadership team member. So they are, virtually in a simulation world. So, it's almost like they are taking on a woman avatar in that meeting. Okay, so it's absolutely brilliant, and so they are experiencing the kind of comments that sometimes are thrown very unconsciously at a woman leader. Okay, oh, I don't think you know this, or no, I don't think that will work, or no, I don't think you understand this, something like that. So it's very interesting because I think the root of all of this is unconscious bias. And like I said, our the way we think, the way we react to situations, it's all accumulated over several years of conditioning. So just imagine, from as a child, if that's what you have been seeing in the world around you, that it's okay for a man to be treated this way, it's okay for a woman to be treated, this way, then that's what is your conditioning, right? And when you enter your workplace, why will your behavior be any different? Irrespective of how much ever training you go through, irrespective of whatever you're told in your HR policies or manuals of programs, the conditioning will always take over, right? I mean, that's what I mean. We are human beings at the end of the day. That's how we will behave. So that unconscious bias and unconscious belief needs to be attacked. And I think organizations haven't even scratched the surface when it comes to this particular aspect of, inclusivity, creating that kind of inclusive culture. The day you start doing that, right from your interviewing yourself, when you're interviewing candidates also, what kind of biases come into your mind? How are you looking at the candidate, whether it's a female candidate or a male candidate? So I think that needs a lot of focus, and this is a huge priority that the organizations must focus on. Second thing is, like I said again, what kind of programs do you have, in the organization to look at women leaders, to give them those kind of, opportunities. Again, one area that I have seen, in all the organizations that I've worked in, Srijata, is typically at an entry level, you'll have a 40-50% kind of a diversity ratio. As you grow up the ladder, it keeps reducing. And that's primarily because, as a culture for women in India, there are many other factors which come into play. Your family always takes prominence. Your husband's job takes prominence. If something happens in the family, it's usually the woman who gives up the job rather than the man. If there's an issue with the child, or child needs attention, or childbirth, young babies, it's the woman, and that's how our culture has been, and it's not going to change overnight. But then, as an organization, what can you do to keep that factor in mind and also create the right kind of programs which can support women and give them that flexibility so that they can continue to grow in the organization and grow into leadership roles? Because if you're not able to create that kind of platform for them, then eventually the same thing will keep happening, and the diversity ratio will keep tapering off, as you grow up the ladder. And today, especially the pandemic, has actually made this whole, like you rightly said, I've been comfortably working from home for the past more than a year now. And many of my women colleagues, have been working from home. Yes, there are its own set of challenges, but it also has given us a lot of flexibility to be able to manage our work and our, home in a very seamless manner. And that's something that we can look at, long term, and not just something which has been created only because of the pandemic situation.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. One of the reasons I felt really good about the pandemic is the ability of the organizations to see that beyond work there's life, and mostly women need to deal with it, need to attend to it. Now all the employees have to deal with it. Now whether it is a woman or man, it doesn't matter. When a child needs something and just rushes into a Zoom meeting, you have to attend to that child. Or when your dog barks, you have to attend to it. There is just no other choice. And I'm also seeing in the last 1.5 year, my husband also works from home, by the way, and he's in a very senior position in a big company, big multinational company, and they have huge diversity angles into their work. But I'm seeing in him as such, there's a change in the behavior. Earlier, if somebody, by mistake came into the Zoom window, he will get angry. But now he has realized it's okay. It's okay to bring that personal aspect in your meetings. That's perfectly fine. So, do you see the organizations are, able to see that side of an employee now, the personal side of an employee now, and will be a little more understanding, accepting, and empathetic to, to see that yes, work can happen along with home. It doesn't have to be either work or home, especially for women.
Absolutely, Srijata. In fact, I've had the same situation so many times. My daughter loves, coming and showing herself on the camera. In fact, I still remember one of our the annual award function, and all our employees and I had just kicked it off, and I was talking, and she suddenly came into the camera, which is fine. I think I just carried on without even batting an eyelid, and she was there, she was smiling. So I think it's become very, very common. And in fact, what's really nice is organizations are actually encouraging that. I know for a fact. So for our own organization, we've actually had, we do monthly town halls with our employees. And we've had very interesting, themes. And one of the town halls, we actually had a completely family theme, where the entire town hall, the speakers, the compeer, the host, everyone were family members. So we had parents of employees, we had kids, who were comparing, and it was such a beautiful show. And many of my managers, I know for a fact that they do these well-being hours, where once a week, maybe on a Friday, all the employees catch up and the kids join the calls. Sometimes the spouses, join the calls, and they sing, they dance, they show their coloring, they all this stuff. I mean, in my own team, we had one of my employees, one of my team members got promoted, and what I did was that, while we did the Zoom call and, we had all the team members and we were congratulating him, I told him, please call your wife. And he immediately turned around, he called his wife, she came and joined, and I congratulated her. I thanked her, for her support, because if she is not supporting her husband, he would not be able to contribute to the organization, the way he does. So I think family, has always been a very
So
integral
true.
part. There are many organizations, who do these, yearly events and all. Like we do, we used to do this grand, family day event every November. And really, really, that's one of the, biggest things that I miss because of this pandemic, where we had more than 4,000, 5,000, family members of our employees come in and have a, huge, gala event celebrating with them. But there's no doubt at all, it's no longer family separate, work separate. I think during this entire COVID, scenario also, many organizations have gone above and beyond in terms of supporting their employees, not just the employees impacted by COVID, but even the family members of the employees who are impacted by COVID, in terms of, whether it's caregiving or support or helping in terms of food arrangements, hospital, many such things, have been done. So I think this is a very, good development, or a good change that we're seeing in organizations.
So true, so true. Now, we've been talking about organizations for a while now. What are the things that an organization can do to help their leaders break the glass ceiling? Now, I would want to, turn your attention towards the leaders themselves. Let's talk about the leaders who are facing such kind of a challenge, a challenge of, or I would say something like a crossroad or something like a setback where they don't know how to grow themselves. They are toying in the idea between, should I choose family, should I choose work, how do I balance myself, and how do I make sure that I grow in my career the way I wanted to grow, at the same time don't leave my family aside, right? What are your tips, or what are your thoughts on such leaders? How can they make sure that they are able to take it all or have it all, let's say that way, in their own respective lives? What are your thoughts, what are your tips for them?
Okay, awesome question, Srijata, because I myself have been going through that phase for the past year now. Not that much professionally, but more personally, in terms of, okay, where am I at this point in time? What do I want to do with my life? How do I want to be as a person? What's my personal vision? What's my purpose in life? So, there's a lot of thought process that I myself have been going through for the past, year now. So, one of the most important things I think is, for the leader to actually sit down and take that time. Look at the lives we lead, Srijata, nowadays. From morning, the time that we get up, till, and you're on your phone, and, the entire day is just packed with activities. When was the last time, and I would ask this leader, or any leader for that matter, when was the last time you actually sat down and did nothing? That concept of sitting down and doing nothing and just being alone with your thoughts is just gone away. It no longer exists, right? And unless you're sitting and thinking about what you feel, about what you want to do, how you think about a situation, how do you feel about a situation, why did you act the way you did, how do you want to act, what do you want to do, 1 year down the line, 6 months down the line, 5 years down the line, when do you actually sit down and think? I think that's the biggest thing that I would tell anyone, who speaks to me, that first sit down, write down, jot down in the old fashioned way, write down what is it that your purpose in life is, what is your, whether it is professionally or personally, what do you want to accomplish, where do you see yourself, what are your strengths, what do you bring to the situation, what is it that excites you, what is it that drives you, and are you seeing that, are you able to use those talents in your workplace, do you want to use those talents in any other area in terms of helping people, supporting people in the community, how much time are you spending with your family, are you using those talents with your family? There is this circle of life, Srijata, and I really love this. I always do this with my, employees. It has, it's just a simple circle, and it has all these things, jotted down on that. Your career, your personal development, your family, spiritual, hobbies, travel, all of that. And then on the axis, you mark how much time are you spending on each of these. And invariably, I tell you, for 90% of us, it will be only career and to some extent, family. And that's it. Everything else will be zero or maybe 5% at the max, whether it's hobbies or interests or, personal development, spirituality, meditation, all of that will be zero. And which is such a pity because, when you say rat race, I think it's really a rat race. It is a race. One day you get up
So
and
true.
we've been so tuned to having something to do that, or if you don't have anything to do, you just go and watch TV, you know and again, you're not thinking there because you're just watching TV, blindly, right? So when are you actually sitting down with your thoughts and contemplating on your life and what you want to do with your life? That is the most important thing that we all need to do if we really want to bring in a change, or we really want to delve deep into what our purpose of life is or what we want to accomplish.
So true, so true. I mean, I can't agree with you more on this. So one thing that I have seen with with many leaders is that the idea of sitting and doing nothing, it comes across as a scary thing for people. If I tell my mentees, or if I'm telling someone who I'm coaching, the leaders, that you need to take out time and do nothing, the response comes as, how can I do nothing? Isn't it wasting time? So, so no, doing nothing is very, very liberating, and it is actually therapeutic. You must do it sometimes. Do nothing, sit quietly and just listen to your mind. That's very, very important. And the second thing, I really liked what you said, Rekha, was about the circle of life, and the pointers that you talk about. I love circle of life as well, and I keep doing that with myself. And there's something that I teach during my talks also, and you would have seen one of them as well, that how do you divide your 24 hours? Those 24 hours, what are the things that you are doing? Is that something that's how you want to spend your 24 hours? Or is it somewhere you can make a change? Just do this for a week. Just write down how every hour, every minute, every half an hour is being spent in your day, in your 24 hours for 7 days. You will see amazing insights coming out of it, and those insights will give you the necessary change, the necessary boost to see where are you lacking and what is stopping you from growing in your life, not only in your career but also in your personal and professional as well as spiritual life. So that would be my addition to it. Now we're almost at the fag end of this amazing interview with Rekha. So the final question to you, Rekha, right now is that what are your 3 most important simple tips for any leader who would want to break the glass ceiling?
Very, very simple. I will repeat the first one, which I had already mentioned earlier. Most important is self belief. That has what, that's what has worked for me in my career. So, self belief is number one. Two is nothing is impossible, and the word impossible exists only in our mind. There have been times in a career, Srijata, and I'll give you an example. In my previous organization, I was in an India HR head role, and then suddenly one day, the CEO invited me to UK, and she said that I want you to take on a global HR role, and I was scared. I was like, wow, and she said, you don't have to relocate. You can be in India, but we live in a world today where we have the technology, and you can travel, of course. And I want you to handle a global HR role. And I was like, my God, how will I handle people from different countries? But it wasn't a big deal at all. And I know it's funny, but the term which always comes in my mind is, how do you eat an elephant? Piece by piece. So how do you how do you work towards a very impossible task? Start step by step. Start with the first step, and then the second step, and the third step, and automatically it will evolve. So that would be the second thing that I would say. That nothing is impossible at all, and the word impossible is only in your mind. And third is, have a plan. Have a plan for your career, have a plan for yourself, and keep that zest for learning always alive. What happens, Srijata, which I have seen with a lot of people, whether it is in people who worked with me, people around me, is they get so caught up in their day-to-day deliverables, they never really set time aside to learn. And we live in a fast evolving world where every day things are changing. If you do not stay in touch with what is happening around you, you and your skills will become redundant. And that applies to both, whether it's a male leader or a female leader. So it's really important that you stay in touch with the times, and for that learning with a lot of zeal, and trying out new things, new experiences is extremely important. So, self belief, nothing is impossible, and learning, continuous learning. These are the three things that I would say. Very simple, but extremely important.
Very, very true again. And you just hit the right chord in there. I mean, for me, I always believe that learning never stops. So I come from West Bengal, and if you are a movie buff, you will know there was a well-renowned director who also got the Oscar for our country, Mr. Satyajit Ray. So in one of his movies, he says that, of course, it's as a sarcastic way that জানার কোনো শেষ নাই, জানার চেষ্টা বৃথা তাই. So it's of course rhymes. What it means in English is that there is no end of learning. Therefore, it is no point learning, right? So of course, so it's like there is no end to learning. So there is no point learning, right? So it's of course sarcasm. And what it means is other way is that you have to keep learning throughout your life and keep upgrading yourself, your personal self as well as your career growth, right? And the moment you think, no, I have grown enough, is when you hit the glass ceiling, is what I would think of. The moment you say, no, I have enough to grow and I can just get going with it and keep learning, you will keep growing. I mean, that's what I have seen in my career as well. So yeah, so I think I loved your last 3 tips self-belief, nothing is impossible, and keep learning, keep upgrading yourself. Leaders who are listening to the show right now, you know what you need to do to just break those glass ceilings easily. You don't even need a big, Thor-sized hammer to break those. You just need one simple knock and it will break off as long as you are working on these things. So with that, we come to this amazing chat that we had with Rekha, the really highly experienced leader of one of the biggest multinational company in India, who recently also got featured in Forbes for her work in how she transforms organizations. So go ahead, watch this and do some changes in your life. With that, I sign off right now with Rekha. I will see you in the next episode really soon. Thank you, Rekha.
Thank you.
So here are the 3 learnings from Rekha's discussion with us. Number 1, have self-belief. Number 2, make sure you don't have impossible word in your dictionary. And 3, you continuously learn. With that, it's a wrap for this episode. I will see you in the next episode real soon.